are the light of my life.
You are the cream to my crop.
Hello, welcome to podcast number 5 of A Little Unbalanced. I'm Cassie and this is
Vanessa.
And we are just outside today enjoying the beautiful weather and sunshine.
Squinty.
A little bit squinty, it's all good.
Yeah, so I have a little controversial topic to discuss with Cash. She doesn't know yet, but I have a question. I'm curious to see what you think about the bear, the man in the woods.
Ooh, that is a controversial one. So I've actually talked to this in length with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be cautious about what I say because I don't want to offend anybody. However, in my experience as a woman growing up, I would choose bear most of the time, especially as a young girl. Growing up, I had a lot of unwanted attention.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times where I was put into situations which were very scary and could have led to, some pretty awful things happening if I hadn't stood up for myself or stepped out of the way. Yeah. What about you?
It's a very torn line. It's a very close line, I think, just because I have so many brothers that there's a lot of men that I trust, obviously. But if I was in the woods, and I've had many encounters with bears, if I was in the woods and I seen either a strange man or a random bear, I would pick bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, when you talk to a lot of women, they would most always choose bear. And it's not because we don't have people that we love and we trust that are male in our lives. I grew up with brothers too, and I trust them, with anything and everything. And my dad and my husband. And so there are a lot of really good men and men that I know in my life.
We don't want to downplay all men. All men, we're not categorizing them. Yeah. It's just in our situation.
Yeah. And so even just the other day, I went to go pick up pottery that we had finished. Mm-hmm. And so we were outside and I had my kids just on the sidewalk as we were trying to get into the car, and a strange man came up and he was clearly on drugs and you know what I mean? And so automatically that fight or flight kicked in. And so I told the kids, no, come around to my side, and you're not trying to be rude or point it out, but you also are so mindful as a woman of all of the dangers that are about to ensue. And that doesn't mean that just men who looked high out of their minds are the people that we're afraid of, but it's late at night. When I was a teacher, I would always be super mindful. If it was dark out, I would make sure I had my phone, I had my keys, I would drive, and we lived pretty close to the school. So I would make sure I would drive there so that I wouldn't get, so I wouldn't get attacked, I guess. I always had my keys in between my fingers. Yes. I was ready to run. I was super aware. I would look all around me. And it's not the same for men. Usually they just can go out at night, not always, but in a lot of situations. No,
because there is instances where they get attacked, obviously.
But I think that as a woman, you're super, super sensitive, and you're always looking at those things, and you're always overanalyzing and overthinking because you have to be aware of, sexual predators and people who are going to take advantage of you.
Be aware of your surroundings. I know when I get into my car, I lock it right away.
Yeah.
I get in and I lock it right away. Yeah. And I make sure nobody's in the back seat.
Yeah. When you're pumping gas, super mindful, right?
Oh yeah. Even if I'm walking by and a guy's looking at me, I can never, I can't even make eye contact.
Yeah.
With men. But so growing up, I was put in situations that weren't very safe, I guess. My dad was alcoholic, and so I was in environments that weren't really safe, and my 2 older brothers always really did try to keep an eye on me and to watch over me, but they're only a couple years older than me, but they did try. But I was still put in situations that I would have grown men, trying to rub up between my thighs and stuff like that. So I look at men in that aspect. I look at men as they're capable of anything. If I was in the woods and I seen a bear, it's, point blank, they maul you.
Yeah.
You get attacked by a bear, you know what the outcome is. are not. They run away. I've never been attacked by a bear, and I've seen many in the woods
as well. Yeah.
But men, if I was walking the bush and I seen a strange man out of nowhere come up to me, yeah, there's so many possibilities of what they can do, and the outcome isn't certain, and you don't know what could happen.
Yeah.
So it's scary.
It is scary. And I think too, like, now that I have a daughter, I'm extra mindful. So when it comes to things like sleepovers, I will send her to sleepover with people who, I have a friend who is a single mom. And so I will send her over there. But I'm super mindful about that type of stuff just because of the things that I was exposed to in my life as well. So you don't ever want to put your own child in that situation, or children rather, because my son too. But you always, you know, as a woman, you're always overthinking or overanalyzing situations because we have to, and just to keep ourselves and our children safe. And I think too, like, when social media came into play, it became more evident and we became more self-aware of what are the things that are going on. And I can remember as a kid, I traveled a lot. So I went to Spain for a while. And as soon as I stepped foot into Spain, and I was traveling by myself, so I was nannying over there. So a lot of the places that I would go, I was quite young, and I would have, you know, fully grown men trying to come up to me and try to solicit or just to get information, and just made me feel really uncomfortable. And I can remember one instance where I had a guy who was recruiting for a bar, and he had come up to me, and he basically, I was pretty naive back then. He asked me to go out on a date. And so I felt him out, and I thought, okay, I'll go on this date. And so he had all of these like beautiful things that he would say to me, and all of these beautiful things that he would do. And so I thought, okay, like, this is somebody who's trustworthy. And he brought me back to a nightclub, and it turned out that his whole purpose of soliciting women, like that, not soliciting, but, you know, that's a wrong word. I was not doing that. But of coming up to women was to recruit them back to this nightclub, and then he would get a fee for the amount of women. And so I met up with another girl, and the exact same things he said to her were said to me. And so we wound up like getting together, and
like a salesman for women,
like a salesman. And so all of those things I was exposed to, I'm very grateful that I didn't run into anything that caused me harm in those situations.
Yeah, especially with
traveling.
sex trafficking now.
Yeah, like now you have to be super self-aware.
Yeah, we weren't, it wasn't really talked about back then.
No, I was so naive. Yeah. And so even in like social media around where we live, like you hear stories of women and children walking the streets and strange cars pulling up, and you know what I mean? And so I was watching a little girl walking today, and she had her cell phone out, and it was on speaker, and she held it in front of her. And it just stopped, and it made me think, it's funny that you brought up this conversation. It made me think, like, that little girl is doing that to show other people that she's on with phone. Somebody, like already at that young age, she knows, and she's self-aware. So somebody taught her. But even at a young age, if you know, if somebody's looking out for you, you're taught to watch your back.
Oh yeah. When I worked in, I won't say the name of the place, but somewhere that had like a very high crime rate and was known to be not safe. We were working out there, and I was working on a hydrovac, and we weren't allowed to work. When it started to get dark, we had to leave, and we stayed in a different area. And I had to wear my hair up in a hard hat, and I couldn't show, like, I was wearing coveralls and everything, so I couldn't show that I was a woman. But when some people would notice, and they'd pull up and be yelling like, "Hey, you, come here." And I would just ignore, and they're like, "You, like the girl, come here." And then my coworkers would be like, "Oh, me?" And then they would walk over there. They're like, "No, her." But so yeah, it's, you know, they didn't get harassed like that. But I even had men coming up to me and being like, because it's a hydrovac, and it was an old school hydrovac, so you had to hold the boom yourself. You had to like hold the wand yourself. It wasn't remote control. And so I'd be holding the boom, sucking up the water and the dirt, getting it out of the hole to expose the line, and like, it's a heavy hose, and you're being like kind of tossed around. And I would have guys coming up to me, be like, "Oh, do you need help? Like, are you sure you can do that?" And then they would get on there and hold it, and they would be like, "Oh, never mind." Here you go. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking right. Don't undermine me.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, and I think it's like those subtleties. And then we were talking, I don't know, the other day about going to the bar when we were younger, and we obviously are in a different stage of our lives, but I can remember going out to the bar and I would get my ass slapped every 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
And it just became normal. It was to the point where I didn't even react anymore, right? At the beginning, I would get angry and I would get mad and upset and offended. And then after a couple years, it was just normal. And you just knew that if you were a woman and you were out at the bar, and this was a different time, like I think it's probably better now, but it was just so commonplace that people would be touching you physically, like unwanted touching, that you would, have to set your boundaries really, really firmly, or it would just continue.
Yeah, I know. I had a lot of brothers.
Oh, okay. So
right?
I do, but they weren't there.
They would. So whenever we were out, my brothers have friends, so we had like I had a big group of men that protected me.
I needed that.
So they would get into a lot of fights over it. But I had guys, like I had one guy, I remember, in a bar, grab my vagina.
Oh.
Like just come up and like,
yeah.
Like, yep. Yeah. And it was actually one of my brother's friends.
Oh.
I don't think they're, like, obviously they didn't stay friends for very long. But yeah, it was one of their friends. So, there's, like I said, I've only encountered one that actually charged at us. Other than that, every time I would scream, and I screamed,
yeah, I did too.
They would run away.
Yeah, I can remember being out on the boat, and the bear had 2 baby cubs, and we're going, "Hey bear, whoa bear," and she backed off, right? So I would much rather, like you said, deal with what you know could happen. Right? You can react to it. I wouldn't want to go up against a grizzly.
No, all those polar bears. We know there's a different variety of bears. We know there's different Kodiaks, grizzlies, polars. All of those. Obviously, if we seen a polar bear, you probably a little bit different. We can't just say "whoa bear," "hey bear." But if we walked up to a man and he was a man approached us and we said, "Hey man, whoa man," he'd just look at us like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Yeah. So it's a whole, that's why it's such a thin line, because I don't want to downplay any good men out there, because I know there's a lot of good men out there. But like I said, if I was in the bush and I ran into a bear, I would, kids are, summer holidays, so the kids are here. I would rather walk into a bear than a man. A bear, you're going to either get killed or mauled and end of it. But with the guys, there's a lot of good men out there. And
I think that's why men react so strongly, is because
they feel hurt.
They feel hurt by the sentiment. And there is a lot of women out there who are anti-men, right? Oh, and that's not the voice that we want to portray, but we also want to be very realistic and show men that, like, when you're a woman, you have to really be mindful. And that's something that they might take for granted as a man, is that you don't have to think about the millions of things that we have to think about when we're just living our lives. The other day I was out walking Forest at the big park in our city here, and I had a man approach me as we were walking, and I just knew, I said to myself, "Cassie, don't make eye contact," and I did, because I'm too friendly. And so I looked up, and then all of a sudden it went from being like a, "Hi, how are you? Have a good walk," and it was, "Oh, what's your name? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Are you married?" Like all of these like very invasive questions, and then automatically you're thinking he could have just been a nice guy, but I am automatically going to go to that fear spot, because I think that he is going to attack me, right? And so like in your brain, you're playing out all these different scenarios.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas when it's a bear, you're just going, "Hey bear, whoa bear, get out of here," or you're running.
Yeah, you're not saying to a man, "Hey bear, whoa bear," or "Hey man."
"Hey man, whoa man, I don't want that unnecessary."
We should do that. That should be our thing.
Could act crazy.
"Hey man."
Vanessa and I could act crazy. We'd put them off.
Act? You mean just act like ourselves? I used to get into, I think because I had the boys around so much, that I was more like cocky, I guess.
Yeah.
So I had a friend when we'd go to the bar, I would get to, like, if a guy was being too much, I'd be like, start approaching them, and she'd be like, "No, Vanessa, like
you're gonna
stop."
fight them?
Yeah, she's like, "Stop." Like, there's a lot of guys out there that will hit
I
you.
didn't need my brothers, I needed you. I just needed Vanessa.
I think it's because I knew I had my brothers in the back, or like the friends in the back that were like, wouldn't let anybody. And my cousin is like 6'4", 6'5", like big dude. So I knew that if especially he was there, people would even look at him and be like, no.
I can remember once when we were younger and we were out at a rodeo, and there was the two towns, I won't give them away, but the two towns had a little bit of a rivalry. And so the boys that I was with and the boys from the other town got in a fight. And so I was the little girl in the driver's seat doing the getaway driving.
Yeah.
And I had a big guy open the door to the truck, and he was ready to punch me in the face because he was all heated up with this fight. And I actually had a girlfriend who came in, and she was like a Vanessa, and she came in and she said, "Get out of there! There's a little girl in that seat!" Right? So, you know, you just don't expect all of the things when it comes to alcohol and drugs, and you know what I mean? When it comes to a man and interacting with all of those situations, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And so you always have to be super mindful. And like, we talk about man versus bear, but I would not want my daughter to get into some of these taxi cabs. I would not. I would personally tell her to take the woman's only taxi cab. And I would never take a taxi late at night by myself if there was a man driving. And that might seem like, oh, that's hysterical or that's crazy. But it's not. I know situations where women have been abused, and they've been like in horrible situations because, you know, people have taken advantage, men have taken advantage of them. So but
I wouldn't have my daughter, our kid, go into the bush either, that I knew there was a bear.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I'm thinking when she's older, right? So she's going to be older. She's going to have to go through those situations. So I just want to like make her self-aware so that she doesn't ever have to be put in that situation, or she can, you know what I mean? She can take steps to be more mindful, to go out in groups and things like that. And it's the same as how we teach our daughters to be, you know, and our kids how to be self-aware in the bush too. We just went camping, and there was a bear right next to our campsite. My daughter goes, "Mom," Vanessa and I were out camping over the weekend, and she goes, "Mom, somebody just yelled that there's a bear," and we kind of laughed it off. We're like, "Oh yeah, whatever."
I believe the kids, obviously.
And then sure enough, it was like a half an hour later.
The forest rangers came by, and they're like, "Here, there's a bear in the area. So be aware."
We definitely talked about bear safety, and I think in that same light, we need to talk about man safety, but then, being safe.
Yeah, even though we knew there was a bear in the area,
we weren't afraid.
We weren't too afraid of it. We know it's probably a black bear.
Yeah. If
there was a strange man that was wandering the campsite,
oh my God, we'd be up and out of there.
That would have been fucking different.
Yeah, we would have been, if somebody had told me, and this is, you know, we've had homeless people camp out in the bushes kind of a couple blocks away from us, and I'm always super cautious, and I won't let my kids out, right? If it was a bear a couple blocks away, I'd be like, okay, be mindful, make lots of noise. So you're right. There's a huge difference there. So I don't know. I think for me, I'd choose bear.
Yeah, I think I would choose bear. So, but yeah, we really appreciate, we hope you found this topic, you know, doesn't piss you off too much if you're a guy, but it's our opinion. So thank you for listening and joining in, and we hope that you join into our next podcast.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us on our journey.
Sending lots of love. Have a
Bye.
good summer.